Hi everyone, good evening. Welcome to Professor Academy's UGC NET Sociology YouTube live sessions. So now Professor Academy is providing few classes as free classes in these YouTube live sessions. Uh, but in these sessions, we will be discussing some of the important parts of UGC NET Sociology syllabus here. And the actual special live classes for sociology will be starting soon in Professor Academy's platform. And if you're interested, you can join the course now. So I'll be giving more details about that course in the end of this class. So for now, let's start the class. So today, we are going to discuss the part 2 of Unit 1, Sociological Theory, which is Structural Functionalism and Structuralism. And these are the thinkers which is mentioned in the current sociology syllabus in this part. Brownislaw Malinowski, A.R. Radcliffe Brown, Talcott Parsons, Robert K. Merton, and Claude Levi-Strauss. So before starting the class, what is this structural functionalism and structuralism actually? What is it? So these two, structural functionalism and structuralism, are two distinct or different theoretical perspectives, each originating in different disciplines and each serving different purposes. So the first one, structural functionalism. So structural functionalism is a sociological perspective that views society as a complex system composed of interrelated parts and each part with its own function. So it views society as a complex system composed of interrelated parts, each with its own functions. And it is developed by scholars such as Emile Durkheim and Talcott Parsons. And this perspective emphasizes the importance of social institutions and their contributions to the stability and functioning of society. So these are some of the main concepts or key concepts related to this structural functionalism. First concept is functionalism. So functionalism is actually the idea that each part of society contributes to its overall stability and function. So that concept is known as functionalism. It is the idea that each part of society contributes to its overall stability and function. Next concept is social institutions. So the social institutions are structures, for example, structures like family, education, religion, government, etc. So social institutions are structures like that. And these structures actually play very much important roles in maintaining social order. So social institutions are structures like family, education, religion, and government. And these structures play specific roles in maintaining societal order. Another key concept related to structural functionalism is manifest functions and latent functions. What is this? What is manifest function and what is latent functions? So manifest functions are the intended and recognized consequences of social institutions. So the intended and recognized consequences of social institutions are known as manifest functions, but the unintended or unrecognized consequences are known as latent functions. Unintended or unrecognized consequences are known as latent functions. For example, we can take school as an example for a social institution. We can take school. What is the primary aim or the ultimate aim of a school? The primary aim or ultimate aim which we believe the schools do is that it provide education to students, isn't it? So it is the manifest function of a school as a social institution. It provides education. But in addition to providing education, through the process of the students, interacting with other students and teachers, they not only get education or they not only get knowledge, but in addition to that, students learn so many other things from school, like they learn about social values or they learn about social relationships, isn't it? Or they learn about various social processes from school or from their interaction with other students and teachers in the school. So such kind of consequences which schools provide, other than its direct consequence, other than providing education, such kind of other consequences were also created by school. And such unintended or unrecognized consequences are known as its latent function. So, the unintended or unrecognized consequences are known as latent functions, but the intended and recognized consequences of social institutions are known as manifest functions. I hope it is clear the distinction between manifest and latent functions. So now, what is structuralism? So structuralism is a theoretical framework that emerged in various disciplines like anthropology, linguistics, psychology, and philosophy. So structuralism actually emerged in throughout various disciplines like anthropology, linguistics, psychology, philosophy, etc. And the structuralism seeks to understand the fundamental structures underlying phenomena by analyzing the relationships between their elements. So, what is the purpose of structuralism or the aim of structuralism? It seeks to understand the fundamental structures of phenomena. It seeks to understand the fundamental structures of phenomenon by analyzing the relationships between their elements. Is it clear? By analyzing the relationships between their elements. And the structuralism was influential in the early to mid 20th century. And famous figures of structuralism were people like Ferdinand de Saussure in linguistics and Claude Lévi-Strauss in anthropology. Now, key concepts related to structuralism. First key concept is structures. So, what is structures? So, structuralism actually focuses on identifying and analyzing this underlying structures that organize and give meaning to phenomena. So, that is the ultimate aim of structuralism. Structuralism focuses on identifying and analyzing this underlying structures which organize and give meaning to phenomena. So, that is structures. Then there is a concept related to structuralism which is known as binary oppositions. So, binary oppositions is the idea that meaning is often created through the contrast between opposites. For example, good versus evil or male versus female. So, if we take these examples, if someone asks us what is good or what is the meaning of good, then we would use the concept of evil to explain what is actually good. Or we can take the next example also. If someone asks us, or if we want to, define what is a male, we use the concept of female to contrast between both of this concept, and thereby we try to give meaning to the concept of male. So, like this, the way of creating meaning by contrasting between two opposites is known as binary oppositions. Then next key concept is language. So in linguistics, the structuralists emphasize the study of language as a system of signs and symbols with inherent structures. So in linguistics, the structuralist focused on studying language as a system of signs and symbols with inherent structures. Is it clear? So these are the key concepts related to structuralism. Now, differences between structural functionalism and structuralism. What are the differences between these two? First, it's disciplinary origin. So we already said that structural functionalism is primarily a sociological perspective. But structuralism, it actually emerged in various disciplines, including anthropology, linguistics, and psychology. So structural functionalism is primarily a sociological perspective, while structuralism emerged in various disciplines. Then focus. So structural functionalism focuses on the role and contribution of social institutions. Functionalism focuses on the role and contribution of social institutions to societal stability. But structuralism seeks to identify and analyze fundamental structures underlying various phenomena. Is it clear? Structural, the focus of these two perspectives. First, structural functionalism focuses on the role and contribution of social institutions to societal stability, while structuralism seeks to identify and analyze fundamental structures underlying various phenomena. Then time period. Structural functionalism gained prominence in the mid-20th century. Structural functionalism, mid-20th century, but structuralism was more influential in the early to mid-20th century. So structural functionalism, mid-20th century, structuralism, early to mid-20th century. Next, key figures associated with structural functionalism. So the structural functional perspective has been shaped by the contributions of so many or several major social thinkers, and these are some of the key figures associated with this perspective. First one is Emile Durkheim, and you already studied about him in the previous classes. He was often considered as the founder of sociology as a discipline, and some of his key works include The Division of Labor in Society and Suicide. And Durkheim emphasized the importance of social order, integration, and the functions of social institutions in maintaining stability. So he is a key figure associated with structural functionalism. Next is Talcott Parsons. He is one of the most influential American sociologists, and he developed the structural functional theory and the concept of the societal subsystems. So Parsons developed the structural functional theory and the concept of societal subsystems. And he worked on the idea of social systems and their equilibrium. Is it clear? Next is Robert K. Merton. So R.K. Merton, he expanded and refined Durkheim's ideas. And he introduced concepts like manifest and latent functions as well as dysfunctions. And Merton contributed to the understanding of social structure and functional analysis. Next is Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore. Davis and Moore. So Davis and Moore were known for their essay, Some Principles of Stratification. That is the name of their famous essay, Some Principles of Stratification. And in this essay, they discussed about the functional necessity of social stratification. So try to remember that name of their famous essay, Davis and Moore's essay, Some Principles of Stratification. And in this essay, they discusses the functional necessity of social stratification. Next is Parsons students, the Parsonsians, Talcott Parsons students. And these are a group of sociologists who were influenced by Parsons' structural functionalism and extended his ideas. And this includes notable figures like Niels Meltzer, R.K. Merton, and Marion Levy Jr. Next is Almond and Powell, which is Gabriel A. Almond and Bingham Powell. Almond and Powell. So this Almond and Powell, they applied structural functionalism to the study of political systems. Almond and Powell applied structural functionalism to the study of political systems. And they co-authored influential works on political systems and comparative politics. Next is Radcliffe Brown. So he was a famous British social anthropologist associated with structural functionalism. And Brown actually focused on social structure and the functions of institutions in maintaining social order. And he also contributed to the study of kinship and social anthropology. So these are the key figures related to or associated with structural functionalism. Now, these are the key figures associated with structuralism. So we already know that structuralism emerged in various disciplines like anthropology, linguistics, psychology, and philosophy. And these are the key figures related to structuralism in different disciplines. So the first one is Ferdinand de Saussure. So he is often regarded as the father of modern linguistics. He is regarded as the father of modern linguistics, and he introduced structural linguistics by emphasizing the study of language as a system of signs and the relationships between them. So he introduced structural linguistics. And one of his key work or major work is known as Course in General Linguistics. So that is Ferdinand de Saussure. Next is Claude Lévi-Strauss. So Lévi-Strauss was a prominent French anthropologist, and he pioneered structural anthropology, focusing on the underlying structures of cultural phenomena. And his key works include structural anthropology and the savage mind. Next is Roman Jakobson. So he was a linguist and literary theorist, and he collaborated with de Saussure and contributed to structuralist approaches to linguistics. And he was known for his work in the Prague School of Structural Linguistics, Roman Jakobson. Next is Michel Foucault. So Michel Foucault was a famous philosopher, social theorist, and historian, and he applied structuralist ideas to the analysis of power, institutions, and discourse. And some of his major works include the archaeology of knowledge and the discipline and punish. Next is Roland Barthes. So he was a semiotician, literary theorist, and philosopher, and he applied structuralist principles to the analysis of signs and symbols in cultural text. And his notable works include mythologies and elements of semiology. Next is Jacques Lacan. So he was a psychoanalyst and philosopher, and Lacan combined psychoanalysis with structural linguistics, and he introduced Lacanian psychoanalysis. See here, so Lacan combined psychoanalysis with structural linguistics, introducing Lacanian psychoanalysis. Next is Louis Althusser. So Althusser was a Marxist philosopher, and he applied structuralist ideas to Marxist theory, emphasizing the role of ideology and social structures. And some of Althusser's notable works include For Marx and Reading Capital. Two works, For Marx and Reading Capital. Last one is Jean Piaget. So Piaget was a psychologist and developmental theorist, and he applied structuralist ideas to the study of cognitive development in children. And some of his key works include The Language and Thought of the Child and The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. So these are some of the key figures associated with structuralism. And these thinkers made significant contributions to the development of structuralism, each in their own respective fields. But it is important to remember that this structuralism was influential, but at the same time, it faced so many criticisms, and eventually it evolved into post-structuralism and other theoretical approaches over time. Now let's move to our first thinker, which is mentioned in our syllabus. It is Brownislaw Malinowski. So Malinowski was a pioneering ethnographer and cultural anthropologist. So he was a Polish-born anthropologist, and he hailed as one of the founding figures of modern anthropology. So Malinowski's influence in this field is very much important or enduring, with his groundbreaking theories and ethnographic approaches which shaped the discipline in profound ways. And throughout his career, Malinowski made significant contributions to the understanding of human societies, cultures, and the intricacies of social life. So, one of Malinowski's most influential contributions to anthropology is his development of the method of participant observation. So, prior to his work, or prior to Malinowski proposed this participant observation, then anthropologists primarily relied on armchair theorizing or only brief visits to gather information about exotic cultures. So until then, the anthropologists primarily relied on armchair theorizing, or they just did a brief visit to gather information about exotic cultures. But Malinowski advocated for immersive first-hand engagement with the community's understanding. So he stressed the importance of long-term residence, active participation in daily life, and learning the local language in order to gain a deeper understanding of the social and cultural dynamics. And through participant observation, Malinowski actually aimed to uncover the functional relationships within a society by moving beyond mere descriptions of customs and rituals. So he was actually aiming to uncover the functional relationships within a society. And by living among the Trobriand Islanders in the Western Pacific for extended periods, he sought to decipher the underlying social structures and the functions of various cultural practices. So that is about Malinowski's participant observation. Next is his functionalism. So Malinowski's theoretical framework, which is functionalism, is another cornerstone of his contributions to anthropology. So by rejecting the then prevailing evolutionary and historical approaches, Malinowski argued that cultural elements should be understood in terms of their functions in maintaining the stability and equilibrium of a society. So he rejected the then prevailing evolutionary and historical approaches, and he said that cultural elements should be understood in terms of their functions in maintaining the stability and equilibrium of a society. And he emphasized the importance of studying institutions and customs in their social context by aiming to reveal the practical purposes they serve for individuals and the community. And in his seminal work, Argonauts of the Western Pacific, Malinowski applied the functionalism to analyze the complex economic exchange system among the Trobriand Islanders. And he demonstrated how the kularing, so the kularing is a system of ceremonial gift giving, and using this functionalism, Malinowski demonstrated how the kularing served not only economic purposes but also it played a crucial role in establishing social relationships or in maintaining peace and resolving conflicts within the community. Next is cultural relativism. So, Malinowski was an advocate of cultural relativism. So, it is a perspective that rejects ethnocentrism and it seeks to understand and interpret each culture on its own terms. So, Malinowski was an advocate of this cultural relativism and he argued against imposing Western values and judgments on non Western societies, and he emphasized the need for anthropologists to adopt an empathetic and open minded approach. So he was against imposing Western values and judgments on non Western societies, and he emphasized the need for anthropologists to adopt an empathetic and open minded approach. And this perspective laid the groundwork for a more respectful and equitable study of diverse cultures by paving the way for greater cross-cultural understanding. Next is psychoanalytic anthropology. So, in addition to Malinowski's functionalist and methodological contributions, he also delved into psychoanalytic anthropology. So, influenced by the ideas of Sigmund Freud, Malinowski explored the psychological dimensions of cultural phenomenon, and he contended that certain cultural practices, rituals, and myths served as outlets for psychological needs and desires, providing a deeper layer of meaning beyond their apparent functions. Is it clear? So, he explored the psychological dimensions of cultural phenomenon also. Next is legacy. So, Brownislaw Malinowski's legacy extends far beyond his lifetime, and his innovative approach to fieldwork and his emphasis on participant observation became fundamental to the practice of anthropology. And the functionalist perspective, with its focus on understanding the functions of cultural elements in maintaining social equilibrium, has actually left an indelible mark on the discipline. And furthermore, his advocacy for cultural relativism has shaped the ethical standards of anthropological research, and it fostered a more inclusive, just a second. Yeah, sorry. So his advocacy for cultural relativism has shaped the ethical standards of anthropological research by fostering a more inclusive and respectful approach to studying diverse societies. So, in conclusion, Malinowski's concepts, his theories, and approaches have had a profound and lasting impact on the field of anthropology. And his commitment to participant observation, functionalism, cultural relativism, and psychoanalytic anthropology has influenced generations of anthropologists and shaping the way we understand and study human societies. And Malinowski's work still continues to inspire scholars to engage deeply with the cultures they study and fostering a holistic and nuanced understanding of the complex tapestry of human life. So these are some of his major works. First one is Argonauts of the Western Pacific. So this is perhaps Malinowski's most famous work. And in this work, he provides an in-depth ethnographic account of the Trobriand Islanders in the southwestern Pacific. And he focused on their economic systems, magic, and social organization. And this book is considered as a classic in the field of anthropology. Next is Crime and Custom in Savage Society. So, in this work, Malinowski explored the connection between crime and social structure, drawing on his fieldwork in the Trobriand Islands. And he examines the role of law, crime, and punishment in traditional societies, and he challenges the prevailing notions about savage societies. Next book is Sex and Repression in Savage Society. So, in this book, Malinowski go deep into the cultural aspects of sexuality and the role of sex in social life among the Trobriand Islanders. And this book examines how the cultural norms and social institutions shape the expression and regulation of sexuality in traditional societies. Next is The Father in Primitive Psychology. So, in this book, Malinowski explored the role of fathers in the Trobriand Islands, and he contributes to the understanding of family dynamics and the psychological aspects of kinship. And he challenges the existing theories and he presents a nuanced view of the father's importance in primitive societies. Last one is Coral Gardens and Their Magic. So, in this work, it is based on Malinowski's later fieldwork in the Trobriand Islands, and this book provides a detailed examination of the role of magic and rituals in the daily life of the Trobriand Islanders. And Malinowski explored the connections between magic, gardening practices, and social organizations in this book. So, These are the major works by Malinowski, and these books have had a significant impact on the field of anthropology, especially in shaping the method of participant observation and emphasizing the importance of studying cultures in their natural context. So, his contributions actually laid the foundation for the development of ethnographic research methods in anthropology. Now, these are some of the questions based on Malinowski. So, first one, who is considered as the founder of functionalism in anthropology? The answer is, of course, Malinowski. Then, what is the term for the anthropological method that involves first and immersive fieldwork? And the answer is participant observation. Next, what influential work did Malinowski publish in 1922 based on his research in the Trobriand Islands? The answer is Argonauts of the Western Pacific. Next question. Which concept of Malinowski emphasized the cultural functions of beliefs and practices? Answer is functionalism. So the last question. In anthropology, what does the term ethnography refer to? So it refers to systematic study and detailed description of a particular culture or community. So now let's move to our next thinker, who is A.R. Radcliffe Brown. So A.R. Radcliffe Brown, his full name is Alfred Reginald Radcliffe Brown. So he was a British social anthropologist whose work significantly contributed to the development of structural functionalism in anthropology. And he was born. His career spanned the early to mid 20th century, and his theoretical insights still continue to influence anthropological thought. So, Brown's approach to anthropology was marked by a departure from the prevailing evolutionary and historical perspectives of his time. And he sought to establish a more scientific and comparative framework for the study of societies. And he emphasized on the importance of understanding social structures and functions. So, his theories, concepts, and perspectives laid the foundation for a structural functional approach to anthropology. So, one of Radcliffe Brown's key contributions was his emphasis on social structure as the central focus of anthropological inquiry. So, he argued that social structures, which is defined as patterns of relationships between individuals and groups, were crucial for understanding the functioning of a society. So, according to Radcliffe Brown, social structures were crucial for understanding the functioning of a society. And he defined the social structures as patterns of relationships between individuals and groups. And his works aimed to uncover the underlying principles that govern these structures and the ways in which they maintained social order. So, what was the aim of his works? His works aimed or focused to uncover the underlying principles which govern these social structures and the ways in which they maintained social order. Then, the central to Radcliffe Brown's theoretical framework was the concept of functionalism, which posited that social institutions and practices served specific functions within a society. Social institutions and practices served specific functions within a society. And he argued that every element of a social structure had a purpose and it contributed to the overall stability and equilibrium of the society. So, Brown argued that every element of a social structure had a purpose and it contributed to the overall stability and equilibrium of the society. And this functionalist perspective emphasized on the interdependence of different social elements and how they worked together to maintain social cohesion. Is it clear? So, his functionalist perspective emphasized on the interdependence between different social elements and how these social elements work together to maintain the social cohesion. That is about Radcliffe Brown's functionalism. So Radcliffe Brown's ideas were influential in shifting the focus of anthropology from studying individual customs and beliefs towards examining the relationships and functions within a social system. So Radcliffe Brown's ideologies, changed the focus of anthropology towards examining the relationships and functions within a social system. And he believed that understanding the role of each element in a society required a holistic approach that considered the interconnectedness of various social institutions. Now, another significant concept in Radcliffe Brown's work was the idea of social morphology. So, in this idea of social morphology, he proposed that societies could be compared by examining their social structures in a manner similar to how biologists compared the morphological characteristics of different species. So, simply, it means that we know that the biologist would compare the morphological characteristics of different species, isn't it? So Radcliffe Brown proposed that, like this, or like in a similar manner, which biologists compare different species morphologically, he Radcliffe Brown proposed that societies could also can be compared by examining their social structures. And this comparative approach would allow anthropologists to identify the common patterns and structures across diverse societies, and this would contribute towards the development of a more rigorous and scientific anthropology. So he said that this comparison of societies based on their social structures would help social anthropologists or sociologists to identify the common patterns and structures across diverse societies, and it would lead to a more rigorous and scientific anthropology. So Radcliffe Brown's emphasis on empirical research and the collection of detailed ethnographic data were also distinguished his work. It was also a, a special feature of his works. He emphasized on empirical research and the collection of detailed ethnographic data. And he believed that anthropologists should immerse themselves in the communities they studied by carefully documenting social structures and functions. And this commitment to empirical research reinforced the scientific rigor of his approach, and it contributed to the establishment of anthropology as a discipline grounded in evidence. So, while Radcliffe Brown's structural functionalism actually dominated anthropological thought for a considerable period, but it also faced criticism for its tendency to downplay historical and cultural specificity. And critics argued that this approach overlooked the dynamics of change and it failed to consider the unique historical trajectories of different societies. So, in conclusion, Radcliffe Brown's theories, concepts, and perspectives significantly shaped the field of anthropology, especially during the mid 20th century. And his emphasis on social structure, functionalism, and comparative analysis provided a framework that influenced generations of anthropologists. While the subsequent theoretical developments have expanded and critiqued structural functionalism, Radcliffe Brown's legacy still enters as an essential chapter in the history of anthropological thought. So here are some of his major works. The first one is the Andaman Islanders. So this is one of his early work and it focused on the social organization of the Andaman Islanders. And This research laid the groundwork for his later theoretical contributions to anthropology. So the Andaman Islanders is one of his early work. Second one is the social organization of Australian tribes. So this work is a collection of Radcliffe Brown's essays on Australian Aboriginal societies. It is a collection of Brown's essays on Australian Aboriginal societies. And in this book, he explored the kinship systems and social structures of these indigenous groups. Next book is Structure and Function in Primitive Society. So in this book, the Structure and Function in Primitive Society, it is a compilation of Radcliffe Brown's key theoretical writings. And this book discusses the concepts of social structure and function and their importance in understanding primitive societies. Next book is A Natural Science of Society. So, A Natural Science of Society presents Radcliffe Brown's views on the scientific nature of social anthropology, and it delves into the methodological and theoretical aspects of the discipline. Next book is Method in Social Anthropology. So, in this book, Radcliffe Brown discusses the methods employed in social anthropology, and he addresses the importance of comparative analysis and the scientific study of social institutions in this book, Method in Social Anthropology. Then the comparative method in social anthropology. So this is an essay which explore the comparative methods in anthropology and its utility in understanding the similarities and differences in social structures across cultures. So is it clear? So these are some of the major works of Radcliffe Brown, and his works actually laid the foundation for structural functionalism in anthropology, and his works emphasized the interconnectedness of social institutions and their functions within a society. And his contributions have had a lasting impact on the field, influencing subsequent generations of anthropologists. So these are some questions related to Radcliffe Brown. First one is, which concept did Radcliffe Brown emphasize in his work? The answer is social structure. Then define Radcliffe Brown's concept of social solidarity. It is cohesion within a society. Next question, which region did Radcliffe Brown focus on in his ethnography studies? And the answer is Australia. So student, that's all for today's class. I hope it was a useful session. So if you are interested to join Professor Academy's UGC Net Sociology live sessions, you can contact these numbers given here. Our classes will be starting very soon. So if you are interested, you can try to join as soon as possible so that you won't be missing any classes. And in our special classes, in addition to discussing our syllabus, we will be attending so many previous year question papers, and we will be doing so many discussion sessions, and there will be MCQ sessions and also. So it would be a complete pack. So if you are interested, try to join as soon as possible. And in addition to sociology, Professor Academy is also providing coaching for all these subjects which is mentioned here. So if any of you are interested to join Professor Academy, you can contact these numbers here. So once again, thank you for joining today. See you in the next class. Good night. Bye.